Okay, so in the last class, we were learning about the difference between Torah in general and halacha. And we brought this verse, the verse that we say at the end of the Atar Esa, the verses before we dance the Torah. Last verse we say is, from Tzion will come out Torah, and the word of Hashem will come out from Yerushalayim. So the simple meaning for the seemingly redundant expression is it's just that. It's just a yofi amlitza, just something which is, it's prose. It's repetition. Tzion, Yerushalayim are both names of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is called Zion, Yerushalayim is called Jerusalem. The word of Hashem and Torah are both the same idea, and it's just repetition. However, we find that even in regards to songs in the Torah, like Az Yashir, Rashi explains each part of every phrase, because everything in Torah, especially in the written Torah, is very precise, and there's a reason for every word and every letter in the Torah, and there's a message here. So we want to understand the difference between halacha and other parts of the Torah. So the way the verse phrases it here is meant to give us this distinction. From Tzion, there's something in Jerusalem which is called specifically Tzion, and that element of Jerusalem is connected to Torah in general. There's another element in Jerusalem which is called Jerusalem, and that element in Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, is connected to halacha specifically. And just like there are two levels within Yerushalayim, there are also two levels within a Jew. The Jew is also compared to Yerushalayim. There is a Zion element in a Jew, and there is a Yerushalayim element in a Jew. And these two elements within us connect us to Torah in general and to halacha specifically. So what is Zion? What does Zion mean? What does Yerushalayim mean? So we learned the last class a little bit. We touched on how the word Tzion, the word Zion, means a sign for something. So the city of Yerushalayim is not just a physical city. It has a spiritual counterpart. And whatever you see in the physical city of Yerushalayim is a reflection of what's going on in heaven. There is a spiritual Yerushalayim. And the physical Jerusalem is a sign for what's going on in heaven. The word Yerushalayim, Tosfos explains that the word Yerushalayim was made by two different tzaddikim. Avram Avinu, as we just learned in the end of Parshas Vayera, he called the Mount Moriah, he said, Hashem Yirah, Hashem will appear on this mountain. He called it Yirah. And Malki Tzedek, in the previous Torah portion, he called Yerushalayim Shalim. He called Yerushalayim the place of completeness, of perfection. And so Tosfos says that the correct way of spelling Yerushalayim is without a Yud. It's Yirah Shalim. There's no Yud there. There are different opinions, but Tosfos says that Yirah Shalim is the correct way of spelling Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim is made up of these two words. Yerushalayim means complete reverence for Hashem. So just like there are two parts of the two levels of Yerushalayim, there is the way Yerushalayim is a sign for heaven, and then there's the way Yerushalayim is associated with absolute fear of heaven, higher level of reverence for Hashem, as we'll see. So too within a Jew, there is a way a Jew is a Tzion, the way a Jew is a sign for what's going on in heaven, and then there is a way a Jew is in a state of absolute reverence for Hashem, and that level within him connects him to Allah. So what are these two things within us? And how they connect us to Torah in general, to Allah specifically? So the Alter Rebbe, in the introduction to Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains the idea of dissenting opinions in the Talmud. The Alter Rebbe explains that the dissenting opinions in the Talmud have to do with the divine source of the various sages in the Talmud. So Beis Shammai, for example, his soul comes from the level of Buddha. His souls come from the souls of the house of Shammai, come from Hashem's element, the way Hashem contracted his life to govern the world, justice. That's why they're always very strict. And Beis Hillel, whose souls come from the attribute of Hashem's kindness, they always rule more leniently because they are connected to kindness. So the truth is that every one of us has a godly soul, and our godly soul is a mirror for what's going on in heaven. It's a tzion, it's a sign for what's going on in heaven. So we say, for example, that just like Beis Shammai, Beis Shammai's mirroring Hashem's attribute of justice is something that every godly soul mirrors. Every godly soul mirrors its divine source. And in the divine source, there are various different kinds of divine energy. Hashem created the world with the name Elokim, but about Torah, it doesn't say just that Torah comes from Elokim. It just says about Torah comes from Elokim Chaim, from the living God. It means within the name Elokim itself, it comes from a higher level within the name Elokim. Elokim, in general, it's a 5-letter word, and it has many combinations. And so the various combinations of name Elokim correspond to various degrees of divine revelation. So the kind of halachic ruling that Beis Shammai and Hillel give have to do with the way they connect to a certain element in divinity. Hashem contracted his light in various ways, in kindness and justice. And so depending on what each person, each tzaddik, each holy daily Yisrael, every not just Beis Shammai and Hillel, but as it says in Hayom Yom, but that every book that was written until the Shach and the Taz, until about the 1650s, until the two codifiers of halacha, the Sifsei Kohen Turizav, all of the works that were written until that time, they're all written with divine inspiration. Afterwards, there are also many books written with divine inspiration, but every book that was accepted by the Jewish people till that time, every single one said the Alter Rebbe, we have a tradition that they were all written with divine inspiration. What's the meaning of divine inspiration? That what they said wasn't just their own opinion, they were mirroring the divine energy within their souls. Now, you cannot give a halachic ruling based upon your divine soul. You can't say, oh, I come from this level, and therefore I'm going to rule this way. You can only give a halachic ruling based upon your mind. But by Beis Shammai and Hillel, because they were so devoted to Hashem, that they know none of their own agenda, and their ego is completely nullified to Hashem. So although we also have a divine soul, but we also have an animal soul. And so we can't know ourselves when we have an idea, is this a correct idea according to Torah? Or is this just the way, as Hasidim are wont to say, a boich svara? This is just an idea coming from my stomach. I had something to eat yesterday, and that's why I had this idea today. Now I'll eat something else tomorrow. I'll have a different idea tomorrow. It's coming from my stomach. But we can't know because we have two souls. But by true daily Yisrael, true great sages who were holy, righteous people, they were able to eliminate the ego to a certain extent, and they were able to completely hone into their soul, so that their minds, the way they thought, it wasn't that they were trying to do a trick. Their way they naturally thought reflected what Hashem wanted, according to what Hashem, the divine energy within their souls, the way divinity, the way godliness. Let's slow down for a second. There are 10 kinds of divine energy, and there is ruling on Shabbos, and there are 10 different parts of the soul, of the godly soul. We also have an animal soul. We also have a body. But let's take an analogy from the body. Just like when you're happy, it causes you to smile, causes you to sing, causes you to dance. Happiness is not a song. Happiness is not a dance. Happiness is a feeling of the soul. But yet, that feeling of the soul affects the way your heart beats, affects the way you talk, affects the way you dance, affects the way you move. That feeling is reflected in your body. So even by regular people, our feelings affect we see something in the soul that affects our physical body. So we have two souls, though. We have an ego soul, we have a divine soul. So by tzaddikim, who they were completely abrogated to Hashem, their minds, when they had an idea, it wasn't just their own idea. It was a divine idea. It was their soul's idea. And their soul's idea comes from the divine energy within their soul that is attuned to something in heaven. So Beis Shammai's soul was attuned to Gvura. He didn't have just like when we smile, it's a reflection of our feelings in our soul. Beis Shammai's mind reflected his soul's understanding of the truth, and his soul was attuned to its divine source. So this is how Torah in general works. Torah in general works in a way that the ideas that tzaddikim present in the Torah, it's not just their own ideas, it's their souls channeling their divine energy, and they're able to channel it because they don't have this ego. They're assigned for their divine core. That's the meaning of that their works written with divine inspiration. Doesn't mean that they had inspiration, therefore they give halachic rulings or they give Torah insights. That wasn't how it worked. They gave divine, they gave Torah, they gave halachic rulings or other Torah insights with their minds, but their minds were attuned to their divine energy within. So that's true for Torah in general. But then the verse says, from Zion will come out Torah, and then it concludes with, and the word of Hashem means halacha, that comes from Yerushalayim. What's the difference between Tzion and Yerushalayim? What is the difference between halacha and the rest of the Torah? So we can understand this also from analogy of our body. There is, let's say, the power of eyesight. The power of eyesight, the reason we always go back to the body is because the Torah says, my flesh, I can perceive godliness. So Hashem built our bodies, as the Torah says, when God made man, let us make man in our image. Therefore, to understand godliness, Hashem wants us to look at things from the way our body works. So there is the power of eyesight. There's the power of hearing. The power of eyesight is specifically placed in the eye. The power of hearing is specifically placed in the ear. Because the ear is designed to harness the power of hearing. The power of intelligence is specifically designed to fit into the brain. So every limb is attuned, it's meant to contain a certain kind of the soul's energy, a specific energy of the soul. It's designed that way, it's built that way. What about desire? Which part of the body does desire fit in? Which part of the body is governed by desire? Desire doesn't work in the same way the rest of the limbs, the rest of the soul energies work. Desire is in the entire body equally. And that's why it says in Tanya, the moment you want to do something, your limb moves. The reason your limb moves immediately is because your desire encompasses your body equally. There's no specific place your desire is. It's revealed in the mind, but it's the power of desire is not a limited energy of the soul. It's not like the power of eyesight, which is limited and has a certain space it's supposed to meant to be in the body. The power of desire encompasses the whole body equally. Why? Because the power of desire is not a limited energy in the soul. Eyesight is limited, and therefore it has a specific place that's designed for it. So the relationship between the various organs and their specific way they are animated, the brain to think, the eyes to see, the ears to hear, is different to the way the body responds to the power of desire. Because the other soul powers are more limited, therefore they can be contained in the various organs in the body. And because the power of desire is not limited, it's an expression of the soul itself, not the way the soul is, not a specific soul power, but it's unlike other soul powers, desire is the soul itself is drawn to something. It's not a specific function of the soul. It's a higher soul power. So the way the body responds to desire is not by the body containing desire. It's not that the eye contains the power of eyesight. The ear contains the power of hearing, and it harnesses that power and it manipulates that power. But the power of desire is not contained in any specific organ. It's more like the body is nullified to desire. The entire body equally is subservient to desire. Desire governs the entire body. Desire governs all soul powers. Desire isn't the body doesn't. The body isn't a vessel for desire. Instead, the body is nullified to desire. Let's use an example of a teacher and student. A teacher can teach a student an idea. Why? Because a student has a mind to receive the idea. In order for the student to be able to learn from the teacher, the student has to have a mind. He has to be able to absorb what the teacher is saying. He can't learn from the teacher unless he has something in him first to be able to receive from the teacher. And every student receives different things from the teacher. A student which is more gifted gets more from the teacher. Student which is less gifted gets less, but not only is it less or more, the way every student takes things is different. Let's look at Beis Shammai's Hill. Beis Shammai's Hill have the same teachers. Beis Shammai's Hill both learned from Shmai and Avtalion. Their teachers, Shmai and Avtalion, taught them, and yet Beis Shammai always interpreted the Shmai and Avtalion's teachings, which were more fluid. They received ideas which are more get crystallized to be either more stringent or more lenient. And Beis Shammai took it one way, and the House of Hill took it a different way. The reason they took it different ways was because they were different. So that's the way a teacher responds to a student. The student receives from the teacher according to who the student is. However, let's talk about a slave and a master. The way a slave responds to a master is not that the slave absorbs within himself the various ideas that the master is presenting the slave. Doesn't matter what the slave thinks. The way the slave responds to the master is that the slave just does what the master says. It doesn't matter who the slave is. It doesn't matter what kind of person he is. The master says he must obey. That's the relationship of student and teacher versus master and student. Master and slave. And just like this is true for two people, the teacher and student and the master and slave, so too is this true in regards to the body and the soul. The body is a vessel for the limbs of the soul, so to speak, the soul energies. The body is a vessel for it, the soul energies. The body has within it the characteristics that are needed to possess, to hold on to allow the soul energy to function in a physical way. The eye to see, the ear to hear, the brain to think. Then there's another element to the body. That is, the body is subservient to the desire of the soul. Regarding the body's, the various organs of the body being nullified, absorbing, containing the various soul energies, the eye's characteristics are important. The eye's existence is important. The eye's parameters are important. It's not that the body is being controlled by the soul in regards to the power of eyesight, power of hearing. Is the body is absorbing, it's receiving from the soul. The operative word, the most important word in regards to the body functioning with the soul's energies is that the body is connected to the soul. There's a connection, there's a relationship between the body and the soul. However, in regards to the desire of the soul, here the most important word isn't the body's connection to the soul, it's the body's abnegation to the soul. The reason why the body is functioning according to the desire of the soul is because the body is nullified. So it doesn't matter what the characteristics are in the various organs, the desire of the soul says to do A, B, and C, the body doesn't, because the body is nullified in the soul. So let's go back now to Torah and to Halakha. Ready to go back at the rest of you with me?
I'm ready.
Okay. So there is a name Tzion. There's a way Jerusalem was called it Tzion. What does Tzion mean? Well, sign. What does sign mean? That this item is attuned to, it's connected to something else. It points to something else. Its characteristics are attuned to whatever it is a signpost for, whatever it's pointing to. Its characteristics are significant. It needs to have these characteristics in order to point to whatever it is. So regarding Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, according to their various understandings of Torah, so their personas, their souls' personas, are relevant in order for them to get what they are able to get from the divine energy in Elohim Chayim. They need to have who they are to receive what Hashem wants to give them. They need that. So there needs to be similarity between who they are and what they're getting. They're not going to get the same thing than another person, because every soul is different. Every soul receives something different from the divine energy based upon who they are. What they receive has to do with who they are. Beis Shammai gets one thing, they still get something else. We're talking about a divine energy which is limited, and therefore it has a parallel in the soul. It's Elohim, it's the name of Elohim, which means contraction. Yes, a higher level than creation. It's not like creation, it's Torah. It's Elohim Chayim, but it's still something which is limited. However, halacha is different. We find halacha means the desire of Hashem. Halacha is what Hashem wants. There is the wisdom of Hashem, and there is actually what does Hashem want you to actually do. Any tzaddik who gives an idea in Torah, that's Torah, you could study it, and you have to study it, and it's Torah. But that doesn't mean that's what you do. The halachic ruling has to do with the ratzon ha'atzmi, has to do with the desire that comes from Hashem's very essence. In order to connect to that, it's not sufficient to just be like Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, which were attuned to their divine soul and they didn't have an ego. They didn't have a bodily ego, but they have their souls have a certain parameters and limitations. To connect to the will of Hashem, here there's something else that's needed. There needs to be complete abnegation of any entity, not just ego. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, they don't have an ego, fine, but they have their own way of looking at things based upon their soul. To get to the will of Hashem, there has to be something higher, a higher kind of devotion to Hashem. Just like we gave the analogy of the desire of a person versus his various soul energies. The soul energies have a parallel in the body. To receive Torah in general, you could be a tzin, you could be a sign for Torah. You could be you have something in you that connects to certain parts of Torah. You have a certain parts of Torah that you like and you connected to and you understand and your soul likes. Your soul has to do with that part of Torah. There was a guy yesterday, doesn't Tanya, every soul understands there are 4 levels of Torah interpretation: the simple explanation, the hints, and the homiletical interpretation, the holistic interpretation. And the author says everyone understands the Torah according to their divine source. So he asked the Rebbe, can you tell me my divine source so I could focus on that part of Torah? And the Rebbe responded, only Hashem knows. And I think it also said it doesn't really matter. I don't need to tell you, because whatever you understand will only be according to your divine source anyway. So you could have sent something for every part of Torah, and whatever you're able to get is anyways. But the point is, we get Torah because we're something, we're a thing. The eye gets the eye power of eyes because of the characteristics of the eye, because what the eye is, not because of what the eye isn't. But the eye is nullified to the desire of the soul, not because of what the eye is, but because of what the eye isn't. Because the eye is nullified to the desire of the soul. The eye receives eyesight because the eye is connected to the power of eyes. The eye is nullified to the power of desire, not because of what the eye is, because of its ability to nullify itself. Because the eye is not, because the eye and the rest of the body they are nullified to this higher power called desire. Therefore, in order to get Torah in general, what do you need to have? You need to be tziyun. You saw the real great sages of Israel who didn't have an ego. Their ideas are divinely inspired. Everyone else, we don't know. Some days yes, some days no. It could be not. We have to try. But as the author says in Tanya, every Jew has to is obligated to make insights and write down his insights, and Rebbe encouraged everyone to write down their insights in Torah. That's for sure, and that's for sure. But you don't know if you actually got it right or not. There are 70. It says there are 70 faces of Torah. And Chassidim say there are also 70, not just faces, the other side. So it could be you got something from the face, the real interpretation of Torah, or it could be, whoa, not really. But that's in regards to Torah in general. And that a tzaddik who is abnegated, who is subservient to Hashem, he doesn't have a problem with his body and his ego, he gets it. They get halacha. Halacha is something more. Halacha doesn't have to do with the parameters. If you have kindness, it doesn't matter what kind of soul you have. Halacha is about absolute abnegation to Hashem. And that level of abnegation to Hashem is where that is where halacha is found. And so and that's what the Torah says. From Zion will come out Torah. From Tzion, from the sign will come out Torah. The element within us that gets Torah is the part of us which is a sign, which is our divine soul, which is attuned to its divine source. But to get to the word of Hashem comes from Shalayim. The word of Hashem comes from absolute reverence for Hashem, comes from absolute abnegation, not just abnegation of evil, but abnegation of all parameters to get to the truth of Torah. Hashem will we'll learn more about it in the next class. Any questions, comments, and criticism before we break for today? Chaim, great day, Yonatan, great day, Shua Shlema, Reb Zev, and Rebero, and Yosef, and also Chaim Peretz, Chaim.